Hi, my name is Iglesias, and today I will be presenting my thesis journey that I've titled Shift, a proposal for lifting community morale. So I began this journey by asking the question, could optimism help build a community and collaboration in neighborhoods? And neighborhoods have truly been in the heart of my thesis work this past year. And due to a childhood of constant shift and travels, my family and I were blessed with the opportunity of being a part of many different neighborhoods. Big neighborhoods like Sao Paulo, Brazil, old neighborhoods with centuries of history like Antigua, Guatemala, and even my current neighborhood of Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, a neighborhood in transition. But in order to fully understand the true potential of a community, you must first take a look at the current root problems each community faces. El Salvador has one of the highest poverty rates per capita in Latin America, and though this issue is improving, there are still over 800,000 people living under the line of extreme poverty. Guatemala has for decades dealt with a corrupt government, and about 2 weeks ago, thousands protested asking for the resignation of both the president and vice president. And in the past year, Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn has seen a rise in muggings and shootings targeting the gentrifiers who are moving in. So I straddle these two communities, and my thesis has been trying to navigate between and through them. And talking to experts in both Latin America and the US gave me some clarity in what the real underlying issues were. Sergio Rodriguez, co-founder of political news platform Medio Lleno, calls this an issue of low morale. This symptom is caused to some extent to the overwhelming amount of negativity that these communities face daily. El Salvador is a clear example of a community affected by this issue, and Napoleon Duarte, its current Minister of Tourism, told me that what they actually face is an issue of perception. Quique Restrepo, owner of Radio 1080, points to the feeling of voicelessness as the pain point in need of solving. So the amount of negative news stories in media alone can increase pessimism and create a sense of world weariness, which causes us to perceive the world and those in it in an exceedingly negative light. This quote by Rolf Daboli warns that this overflow of news could in fact harm our psychological health. So I reframe the question. Could optimism help communities that face overwhelming issues such as crime, poverty, foreclosures, and lack of funding play a role in creating a shift towards the good? Here in a systems map, I illustrated the current cycle of how negativity affects the morale of a community and how we can intervene by using optimism to boost morale and affect change. Feeling overwhelmed by the enormity of these social issues, I was inspired by the book Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. I learned that in order to create one contagious movement towards the good, I had to first create many small ones. So I began sketching small movements, concept of products and areas where design could play a role in aiding this goal. And I landed on the first conceptual platform, which I titled The Blank Canvas. When thrown at a wall, this paint Molotov cocktail creates a splattered blank space to be filled by members of the neighborhood with ideas, needs, and examples of what is working in their community. Borrowing the aesthetics of revolution, it is a glass bottle filled with white paint. It allows the community to instantly create a space to work together. Further exploring this concept of the platform digitally, I designed two apps called Hola and Radio. Hola counteracts the PTSD-like symptoms caused by negativity in media with user-generated positive headlines, each shedding light to the positive events, people, or behaviors seen in each community. And Radio gives the mic to the people and allows them to bring attention to the good they believe is being overlooked, and from where they could build a sense of community. Through these concepts, I understood the need to build a community, and I created Chunche. Now, repeat after me, Chunche. Thank you. That's actually way better than I thought. Chunche is Salvadorian slang used in place, it's a Salvadorian slang for a word used in place of that which has been forgotten or overlooked, which unfortunately in Latin America usually means the good. Chunche is a platform that allows users to share the good in their neighborhoods through photos and stories. And it was originally pitched as a print publication that was going to be distributed monthly in each neighborhood. And through my first user testings, people seemed to love the idea and they wanted to be involved, but I kept having to deal with responses like these from professionals in my line of work, that my designs were creating a sense of elitism, that the designs that I had created would look ridiculous in the hands of those who I designed them for, and that I was using design as a tool to gentrify. And I asked myself, why? Why is there this misconception? Why are some entitled to so-called good design while others aren't? I refused to talk down to my audience and my neighbors, and I made it my overall goal in this thesis to design a movement that people would love and would be proud to join and participate in. And I follow the footsteps of influencers I admire, like Joshi.co, who's actually here in the audience today, Serotonin from Guatemala, and Instasams from Chicago, who have reintroduced people to their cities and their environments by showcasing overlooked beauty through photography, art, and social media, as well as taking the approach that artists like JR and Brandon from Humans of New York have taken and using photography, paper, glue, and stories to make those invisible visible. However, instead of making my neighbors the subjects of the photographs, I decided to give them the camera instead. So Chunche is divided by cities around the world, each made of a community of people actively seeking and sharing the good around them, from New York City to Hong Kong. If you were to click on the good of New York City, you'd find a dashboard of all the most recent Chunches posted. And you can filter them by how recent they are, their popularity, or their neighborhood or borough it belongs to. Clicking on the Chunche takes you to its detail page, where you can read and see more images of the good and learn more about the neighborhood who posted it. Neighbors could also create and promote events or meetups. These could be volunteering events, neighborhood cleanups, and could be sponsored by local shops who need the attention and the business. You could also follow other neighbors and meet people in your area that promote and love the same Chunche as you do. Overall, we seek to create a community around optimism. I wanted the online experience of Chunche to be as interactive as the act of finding the good, so each neighborhood's dashboard could be downloaded as a poster, so the neighbors could actually share the good. Now, I wanted to prototype this, as some of my biggest questions and fears were that the content wouldn't flow in, that people wouldn't be interested in sharing the good around them. So I set out to prototype in a pretty analog way. I bought disposable cameras and I branded them, and I left them at 2 different bodegas in my neighborhood. Each bodega would become a hub for Chunche. After briefing the owners, I left the cameras there with this short message. A couple of days went by and the cameras didn't move, but then they did, and then some actually came back. A little less than half of the photos were overexposed or too dark, but I had about 50 or so decent photographs of Chunches around my neighborhood. These are some of my favorites. But here's the thing. Though most of the photos are blurry or out of focus and even overexposed, their quality isn't really that important. What is important is the fact that people were willing to take the cameras and go look for whatever they defined to be good. By doing so, they experienced their neighborhoods through a different lens. They might have seen a splash of color, a piece of art, or a corner that they might have never paid attention to before, but for some reason, that day made them stop and appreciate that fleeting moment of optimism. I grabbed some of my favorite photos and dropped them onto the grid I had designed, and I decided to share the good with my neighbors. For many, these images probably don't mean much, but for those who took them, they mean everything. This is only the first of many editions of Chunche. So I began this journey by wanting to throw an idea at a wall, and I ended by doing just that. So this summer, if you run into a small beat-up camera at a bodega in Brooklyn or at a park bench, take it and share the good you see around you. But please, do give it back. before I say thank you, I gotta say thank you to some people first. I want to thank my mom and my dad and my brothers, David and Fernando. Fernando's right there. This is my only family. My girlfriend Melissa, who's watching from the live feed. Alan, Gabs, Marco, and Alicia. My Wonder Sauce crew over there. And my classmates. These past 2 years flew by. Learning and growing by your side has truly been an honor, and I can't wait to actually hang out with you and be real friends after this now. So thank you so much.
That was very touching. I need you to use chunche in a sentence, please.
I'm glad that chuncha's over. Nah. Well, the beauty about chunche is that everyone has its own definition of it.
But it's that which is forgotten or overlooked?
Yes.
Underappreciated?
That is the definition I gave it, and I hope it sticks.
It's a thing or something, right? And there's no English equivalent.
Well, there was. The closest we got to it was thingy-majig. Yeah. But I don't like that
Not so
one.
graphic. Yeah. So I want to go straight after this issue that you were very clear about, where you presented this early work in December, and there was a lot of pushback that this was too fancy for your audience. There was an unbelievable prejudice in this kind of feedback.
Yes.
And to me, this project is about aspiration. And I don't even know if it's about, maybe that's even a value judgment. Ooh, these people need to aspire to good design because they live in, bad neighborhoods. Like, I don't even know what those words mean. And I like the fact that you were like, no.
Yes.
Right?
I feel that people, regardless of where they live or zip code or area code, actually do appreciate what is good. And if we keep talking down to them, they'll never aspire to become anything greater. And they do appreciate it, A lot of the kids that I spoke to in my neighborhood are sneakerheads. They love sneakers. They appreciate good design, or what we accept as good design. So I refused to, for some reason, lower the standards of what I viewed as myself as a good design, just to try and make it look more fitting in their environment, or what we think is their environment.
Yeah, exactly. And the adjectives are really sloppy around that. So something that I think you had to rush through is that you had made a pact, you had made a deal with these kids that if they did this, you committed to 1,000 posters, right? So I think the audience needs to understand that the kids were promised something.
Yeah. I have a printer in Long Island who's gonna print the 1,000 posters after I'm done. Okay. The turnaround time wasn't enough, so these that you saw today, I printed myself. But yes, there will be 1,000 posters circulating Brooklyn.
Okay. And it'll probably be pretty unbelievable, I'm imagining.
It's already unbelievable, so I'm extremely, so I'm really excited of where I landed, and the photos that I got back were amazing, so I can only expect it to get better.
I also see this project scaling really all over the world. Photography and visuals are a universal language. And I really see unbelievable things for this thing. Do you have aspirations? Do you have dreams of, in some sense, sharing this recipe with other communities around the world?
Yes.
Around the city?
At the beginning of the year, my thesis started back home in El Salvador. So I do intend of taking it back to El Salvador and see how it grows there in a completely different environment. So, and I'm going to carry on with it here also. So when I said you might run into a camera, you might literally run into a camera. So yes, it's definitely going to keep going for sure.
We will do it, and we will give it back.
Please do.
Thank you, Andres.
I want to take a selfie, actually. It's probably awesome.